belts are fastened. Lou Williams for the win. Bingo!
Oh my goodness.
By Landry, Ariza drop down. Kobe! Oh! Up high! Down hard! Kobe Bryant!
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry!
Kawhi aggressive to the rack.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to an off-season live here on Dime Dropper 2025 off-season, and we got big news, the move that we've been talking about for many weeks. My boy Emil had a tweet that summarized the situation pretty well. It felt like the people on Twitter, all these Clipper fans, shout out to my guy DJ Primal, kept talking about John Collins, and here we are today on July 7th. The Clippers have John Collins. Our good friend Norman Powell is being traded to Miami. The full terms of the deal. And look, my sleep schedule has been fucked. So I have been all over the place. I woke up and this trade had been a thing for hours. So I'm late to the party. I get it. We'll fix that in due time. But looking at the trade right now, officially reported by Shams at 7:19 a.m. local time, the Clippers, Jazz, and Miami Heat have agreed to a trade that sends Norm Powell to Miami, John Collins to the Clippers, and Kevin Love, Kyle Anderson, two of my favorite UCLA Bruins of all time. 3 UCLA Bruins involved in this trade. No one's talking about that. You know, a real LA guy got to bring that up. And a 2027 Clippers second-round pick to the Jazz. I believe that second-round pick was from the, what's it called? From that trade for Terrence Mann. So, yes, here we are. John Collins is a Clipper. Now, before we get started, super chats are turned on. If you want to drop $1 or a dime, any donations appreciated. If you've been paying attention, I've been posting on my Spotify post-game playoff recaps because I never did, and I promised I would get that content out because we do not waste a single year. Every single playoff game should be covered as long as I'm doing this. So they're coming out on Spotify. If you want to see the video breakdowns, become a member of the channel. I've put that link. You can join on my homepage. Members are entitled to, like, you know, extra perks. You can have membership badges and all this stuff and early access to videos. So check that out. And also just a way to support your boy every month. And then for the YouTube channel, for the regular audience, I'll be releasing series breakdowns after I finish watching the series, because believe it or not, I actually did not watch series as thoroughly as I normally do. But let's talk about John Collins and Norman Powell. My initial reaction, it's a win. We wanted a power forward. We saw Kawhi Leonard not struggle immensely, but he struggled a bit, you know, with Aaron Gordon and with that size and having to constantly box out and be that low man rotating when Ivica Zubac was pushed away from the basket. We wanted to make our lineup bigger, and that's exactly what we did. John Collins is the first name that was coming to mind when we talk about a guy that can slide into that 4 spot as a bigger forward, stretch the floor, and give us some athleticism that we so desperately lack. This is a guy that was born in 1997, so he's around my age. He's going to be turning 28 in September. So before the season, he'll be turning 28. Sounds to me like you're getting a prime John Collins. Now, the thing about him is he's on an expiring deal, so this will be a great year to test, you know, how good he's going to be for us. But this is a big win for the Clippers. I also think it's a big win for the Miami Heat because you're trading Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson, bringing in Norman Powell. That team needs some offense. I think he and Tyler Hero will be very explosive offensively, but defensively they're going to bleed a lot of points. But it's definitely a good move for them. But as far as John Collins, you know, last season he only played 40 games. Of course, the Jazz are a rebuilding team. He shot 53, 40, 85 splits, though. 53, 40, 85 splits. Imagine if you got a 4 shooting 40% from 3, and he's going to be catching lobs from James Harden. He's going to get a wide open threes. You know, this is an opportunity for John Collins to kind of be ideally like that PJ Washington for Dallas or Aaron Gordon to Denver, you know, to be that big forward that gives us more physicality, more toughness, more athleticism around our stars to make life easier. So you couldn't have gotten a better guy here. We're talking about 6'9" and averaging those numbers, high flyer. Now, he's not perfect, right? I think the test for John Collins, and this is my honest opinion, is when I watched in 2021, my first season doing Dime Dropper, I was obviously fresh out of college and had a lot of time on my hands, no job. So I was watching John Collins. I mean, not John Collins. I was watching the Atlanta Hawks a lot because I was like, you know what? They're going to be a playoff contender this year. I'm going to watch them thoroughly. And so if you go back and you go to my playlist, Bones Got Busy, if you're in this chat, can you link that for me? The 2021, it's called 24-minute recaps playlist. And I went live almost every single night of the regular season. And the Atlanta Hawks were one of the teams that I talked about for about 40 games. And I timestamped all of it. So I really got a chance to watch John Collins closely. And this is a guy at that point who had been in the league for 3 years, had that whole like steroids thing. I remember. Am I tripping on that? I think he had like a steroids thing. Let's see. Maybe that was just DeAndre Ayton. I may be tripping on that. He suffered a shoulder injury. This is like 2018. He didn't have. Oh, yeah, there we go. League's anti-drug policy. Yep. 25 games in the 2019-20 season. But I thought there was a good player in there because you had a guy who was averaging 19.5 points and 10 rebounds by year 2. 19.5 points and 10 rebounds by year 2. So I'm thinking to myself, man, this might be a future star in this league. And then he had the season with the doping scandal, 22 and 10. He was averaging 22 and 10 on 58, 40, 80 splits. So granted, shitty team, but I thought maybe he could be a star. So then I was watching 2021 Atlanta, and he was averaging 18 and 7. And here was my opinion on him. He's athletic. He can shoot the ball. He's not a star. I mean, we know now he's not a star, but at the time I was like, he kind of has some mid-post game. His footwork isn't too bad. He has pretty decent touch, but he's not really aggressive enough. I feel like John Collins doesn't view himself as like a let me get the ball and go get a bucket kind of guy. You know, he never took that next step aggression-wise in taking the ball out of Trae Young's hands and making it easier. Now, I remember John Collins had like a statement about how he felt like he wasn't really getting the ball enough, which was a little bit suspicious. And I felt Trae Young maybe was playing too heliocentric, wouldn't get him involved. Because I remember John Collins used to be able to sometimes catch it in the mid-post, you know, jab step, just jumper, not many dribbles. But I think when you saw on Utah, because on the Hawks, I mean, he was, and then defensively, let me just, before I go to his career trajectory, defensively, I thought he was inconsistent. So like he's capable of playing as a small ball 5 in a switch everything unit, but I'm still a little skeptical about his perimeter defense, just moving his feet. But in terms of like secondary rim protection, a guy that can rotate at the basket, an athlete that can play help defense around the rim, I think that's where he's going to be really, really good. The challenge for him now is going to be, you got nowhere to hide. We're switching 1 through 4. Can you stay in front when teams might target you? That's going to be the challenge for John Collins. But overall, I think, would I rather have John Collins guarding on an island or Norman Powell guarding on an island? I think John Collins is the clear choice there. And he gives us another rebounder, which Norman Powell wasn't doing anything of. And he's going to be able to, as I said, be a help defender. I think that's what's going to be amazing. And he's going to be motivated. We're talking about a guy who's been playing losing ball in a losing city for a losing team. The Utah Trash, stinking it up. There's nothing better than the Utah Trash being literal trash. But again, I know that's, they'll be back one day because they're rebuilding. Danny Ainge at the helm. This move was clearly to give some of those young guys like Sensabaugh and Isaiah Collier, former USC Trojan, more minutes, more burn. But I love seeing them suck. Filipowski, I love seeing them bad. So as far as the playoffs with John Collins in 2021, remember, he was the starting power forward on a team that made it to the conference finals. Now, his numbers did drop. He averaged 14 and 9 in the playoffs on 55, 36, 83 splits, but he's shooting 55% from the field. I'll take the 36% as a starter on a conference finals team. So at that point, that was year 4 for him. He was looking great. The following year was a little bit of a drop-off for him. Now, he averaged less points by 1.4. He went from 17.6 in 2021 to 16.2 and averaged 8 rebounds a game on 53, 36, 79 splits. So each category in shooting, he dropped 3%. and he missed 28 games. And that was definitely part of the reason why the Hawks struggled more that year, in addition to everybody kind of knowing that, oh, the Hawks are no joke now. So they finished that season in the 8th spot, got smacked in the face by the Miami Heat in 5 games in that in that first round. And John Collins had a pretty underwhelming series of 9 points a game with 5 rebounds on 49, 36, 50 splits. Yes, 50% from the free throw line. I don't know how many free throws he shot that series, but that was not a very good look. So this is when I started to first hear Hawks fans complaining about John Collins. This is when I started to hear he sucks. He's not going to fulfill his potential. He started out so great, and then all of a sudden he's looking like this. So that's when I started to hear the complaining. Now, 2023 was his last season as a Hawk. He played, so his last season on a team that actually was trying to make the playoffs. He played 71 games and started all of them. He shot 53% from the field, 37 from 3, and 79.5 from the line. He averaged 15 points and 8.5 rebounds. So it was kind of a bounce back season. Sorry, I got that wrong. 13 points and 6.5 rebounds. So his numbers kept going down. I know part of this is bringing in Onyeka Okongwu, but his numbers kept going down. So the Hawks moved off of him and threw him to the Jazz. And in his 2 seasons with Utah, last season, 2024, he averaged 15 and 8.5 on 53, 37, 79.5 splits. And then this past season, he only played 40 games, but he shot 50, as I mentioned, 53, 40, 85 splits. So, honestly, see, that was what disappointed me, right? It's the same thing I said about DeAndre Ayton in the last live about the Lakers, is when John Collins got to Utah, I was like, oh, he can eat. No excuses for having Trae Young dominate the ball. Now you got to get shots up. And what does he do? He only averages 1 more shot attempt than he did in Atlanta and averaged 15 points a game. So that let me know that he's no star. He's nowhere close to it. So I think as of last year, I knew, hey, John Collins is averaging good numbers. He could be a good player for a team that needs someone like him in that PJ. And PJ Washington was a lottery pick. He was a higher pick than John Collins. John Collins was the 19th pick in the 2017 draft. But now we know, okay, he's not going to be a get your own bucket kind of guy, maybe on a mismatch kind of deal, but he's not going to be a go-to guy. Can he be a connector for a team that needs him? And that's exactly what he's got the opportunity of being able to do now. He is now being thrown into a team that has a win now mindset, and to be that missing piece, that big forward around Kawhi Leonard that we haven't had since we traded away really since we got rid of Marcus Morris. So I'm ecstatic about this move. I think John Collins is not perfect, but I think he's perfect for what we need, which allows Kawhi Leonard to be the 3. And now if you have your bigger 4 on Kawhi Leonard, because teams will deploy their 4 on him to stick with him in man-to-man, now we have a smaller guy that's going to be guarding John Collins. And hopefully, this is a guy that averaged 2 offensive rebounds a game last year. We'll be able to exploit them on the glass. So I'm pretty hyped on this news. And hopefully John Collins is that missing piece. We got our power forward. We got our backup center. Lawrence Frank, I have to give it to him. These last 2 summers, he's done a really good job. And if we think about Lawrence Frank's tenure, he can be very critical about certain things. But I think if you want to look at Lawrence Frank's tenure as the president or the GM of the Clippers, I think the biggest knock you can have on him is he bent over too much for Kawhi and Paul George. Because the fetish for a point guard, that got us in a little bit of trouble, starting with the John Wall maneuver. I think, getting Kawhi Leonard was a necessary thing. And for him to be the GM that pulled that off, I mean, at the time, we were forever grateful, right? Paul George, yes, there were people like me who just wanted Kawhi to join the 2019 Clippers. I didn't want a second star. Remember, before 2020 and 2023, I was still an optimistic Clipper fan that had delusions that we could win every year. Just kidding. Not every year, but I was a different sort of fan back then. I've aged and changed. You know what I'm saying? If I was doing this podcast in Lob City days, it would be, you think nobody would have ever called me a negative Nancy or not a good fan of this bullshit. You guys would have thought I was the most positive person in the world. So I still thought, hey, 48 wins without a superstar. Give us Kawhi. Shea's improving. Let's go. No Warriors. because that's the only thing that made me nervous was the Warriors with KD. To get them out of the picture, we got a chance to contend. Fuck LeBron and Anthony Davis. They'd never even played a game together at the time. So that was my whole take at the time. But if you're Lawrence Frank, you have to make that move. You got to do whatever it takes to get Kawhi, and you're still getting a star in Paul George as a second option. At the time, he had never even been the second scorer on any team, like a second scorer on any team since he became a star, Paul George. So we had to do that. I think in 2021, we went out and addressed our concern, which was we needed a second rim protector behind Zoo. Got Ibaka. That didn't pan out. I think the Lou Williams trade for Rondo was actually a good move at the time. If you remember the regular season, Rondo played amazing. Now, in the playoffs, knowing Kawhi went down, yes, we could have used some Lou Williams. But if you remember, with the way Reggie Jackson was playing, Lou was taking away the ball from other guys. He wasn't adapting to the situation that we were in, which was, oh, we have Paul George healthy now. We don't need you to be such a ball-dominant guy. And I thought that every time Lou got the ball, it was like he had to make a play. And his defense, he wasn't even trying anymore. So getting Rondo and Rondo being so bad that it allowed Terrence Mann and Luke Kennard to get more minutes, I think that ended up being a win for us. And I'm never going to complain when we make it to the conference finals for the first time in franchise history. So I think what Lawrence Frank did up until that point was great. I think the Patrick Beverley trade ended up being good because we ended up flipping Bledsoe for Norm and Covington, which brings us to Norm, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. But I think Lawrence Frank's first mistake was really that Isaiah Hartenstein thing. I think that was just bending over for Paul George and Kawhi so badly. That was what was hard. So it sent us in that direction. And then we doubled down on that season by trading the pick that ended up being Cam Whitmore, which was so stupid, for washed up Eric Gordon alongside Luke Kennard. So those were some tough moves. And then you have the Harden trade, the Westbrook move. So I think Lawrence Frank, if I'm being honest, he had two whack years, 2022-23 and 23-24. But these last two off seasons, he's been cooking up. I can't lie. Let's talk about Norm for a sec. It sucks to lose Norm, but we knew that one of Norm or Bogey were going to have to be sacrificed in order to get a power forward. I talked about it on Locked On Clippers all summer long. And if you've not been listening to that, if you want more consistent Clipper content, I do Clipper content there 5 days a week. So go check that out. But of course, I'm trying to be better on Dime Dropper lately, releasing the playoff stuff. Better late than never. It's the playoffs. I had to release content because, like, I know some of you are probably wondering what was my take on the playoffs outside of the LA teams. Because, come on, I held myself to a standard every year. But, man, I'm going to miss Norm because he was just such a class act. He had the best season of his career. He was on an expiring deal, though. Same with John Collins. We knew that his contract was about $19 million a year expiring, was going to be a good one to move. And we knew that one of Bogey or Norm was going to have to get moved in order to get a power forward. And I said that Norm was the most likely to get moved because he was on that expiring contract and because Bogey just got here. So Norm is owed $20 million next season. And we traded that. And clearly he wants an extension long-term. And the Clippers, we have Kawhi Leonard's deal running out in 2027. James Harden's runs out in 2026. And a lot of other guys are there ending in 2027. So we don't want Norman Powell to get an extension past this era. He's in his prime right now. He's 32. He's looking for one last big contract for his 34, 35, 36 years. And I don't know I don't think Norman Powell is going to get any better. I think he can have a very similar season this year in Miami, like 20 points a game type. But I will say, man, Tyler Hero, Norman Powell backcourt, you definitely want to keep Andrew Wiggins, in my opinion, now. Like, I know they've been talking about shopping him, but, like, what are you going to do? Play three guards with Norm, Hero, and Davion Mitchell? Like, that's a little small, in my opinion, and you have two guys that can't really guard in that starting lineup. But Bam Adebayo, he definitely cleans up a lot. Kello Ware cleans up a lot. It's a Quentin Richardson jersey given to me by a subscriber. Thank you, my boy JL3. But, yeah, that is the deal with Norm. I want to give a shout-out, though, to Norman Powell for the 3.5 years that he did spend here. I legitimately think he was great every year, whether it be a six-man role, whether it be last year, picking up the scoring without Kawhi Leonard, essentially playing at an all-star level and being available. He had some injuries, but when he played, the one thing I could always say about Norm is he let it fly. He played with aggression. He had a scoring appetite every time he put on the Clipper uniform. And, you know, this was an amazing year for him. And we would have never gotten 50 wins and been a playoff team with only 37 games of Kawhi Leonard if it weren't for Norman Powell this year. 22 points a game, 3 rebounds, 2 assists on 48, 42, 80 splits. Of course, the postseason didn't go as planned. He never really seemed to find his rhythm with Kawhi Leonard back in the lineup. We never really got that synergy with what I was calling like the big four playfully with Zoo, Harden, Kawhi, and Norm post injury. But, you know, beyond the production on the court, which he gave us every single year, just a true professional, a guy that represented the franchise with pride. I never heard anyone say a bad word about him, whether it be media people, fans. He was always gracious to the fans. I have a vlog. I mean, so many vlogs with Norman Powell in them, you know, from the 2023 season onwards. I did have some 2022 vlogs when he barely played for us that season, but, you know, being a season ticket holder for 2 of his 3 full seasons as a Clipper was an awesome experience. He gave us some awesome moments, some great crowd roaring moments on big threes. And, you know, he's a guy that I've been watching since UCLA. So to have Norman Powell, who was one of my favorite Bruins, on the Clippers and have a good positive tenure as a Clipper. I don't know if he'll be more remembered as a Clipper than he was with the Raptors because he won a championship with the Raptors, but it's no doubt where he was the best. And that's right here with the Clippers. So, you know, he already posted under his thank you Clipper Nation or under the Clippers thank you post. He already posted Clipper Nation. It's all love. So always rooting for Norm. I asked him about Jordan Adams in that vlog where he was speaking to the fans after a game or one of those like meet the player events. And he was saying, I think he's doing well. He's doing well. He's playing overseas. So I just thought Norm was such a cool guy. He was signing jerseys for people. I remember when he almost ran into the tunnel and then signed my friend Christina's jersey. Just a class act all the way around. So I truly wish him the best. I think Miami Heat fans have an awesome player, an even better dude and competitor with their roster now. So love me some Norman Powell. But now it's the John Collins time. So I'm excited. Now here's the question. What does our lineup look like now? Well, there's talks about us trying to sign Bradley Beal. I just did a Bradley Beal episode on Locked On Clippers. But let me just say this about Bradley. He's still a very good player. I think he's still better than Norm. He's not as aggressive. He doesn't get to the basket the same way. He doesn't get to the free throw line the same way. And he doesn't move without the ball as much, I don't think. But he can create his own shot and pass the ball and is just a more skilled basketball player than Norman Powell ever has been. He has that step back going left. He has a little step back. He has a great mid-range game. You know, this is a guy that averaged 30-plus points in the NBA 2 straight years, and one of them was on a playoff team. So, theoretically, I would like to bring in Bradley Beal, but here's the thing. I don't want Bradley Beal starting because it takes away. Because right now, here's what our starting lineup should be. You have the guaranteed 4 starters, Zoo, Harden, Kawhi, and Collins. What's the most logical thing to put next to that? Yes, you'd probably want a good shooter, but John Collins gives you some 3-point shooting. He's not shooting that much worse than Norm. We need our point of attack defender. We need the guy that's going to go out and guard the best player, which is either Chris Dunn or Derek Jones. There is no secret why we had one of the best defenses in basketball last season. It wasn't just because of Jeff Van Gundy. It's because we got 2 point of attack defenders that were better than Terrence Mann, who was our best one the year prior, or Westbrook, whatever you want to say. They are the reason why our defense was so good. So if we start Bradley Beal, who's guarding the best player to start games? Kawhi or Beal? Hell no. That's not making Kawhi's life easier for bringing in John. We're bringing in John Collins to give Kawhi Leonard a power forward. You then want him to guard the best perimeter player on the other team or let Beal do it? I saw what Beal looked like guarding the best player in the Minnesota series 2 years ago. He got lit up. And here's the thing. He didn't do a horrible job, but Bradley Beal being the best point of attack defender in your starting lineup for a competitive team is an oxymoron. They're not competitive with that. He's solid, but he's nothing special on defense. If Beal's coming off the bench with Bogey and Derek Jones and Nico and Brook Lopez, sign me up. I'm happy with that. That is a good-ass team. But if Beal's coming with the notion that he's going to start, we're making a huge mistake. We don't need Bradley Beal so badly, in my opinion. Just go out and get another guard off the bench if you want ball handling, because if James Harden gets hurt, I thought about it. I don't know if Bogey will be able to handle that, and I think having Bogey off the ball a little bit is good. And Chris Dunn, his ball handling didn't really impress me too much last season. I felt like he was uncomfortable bringing the ball across against pressure and turned the ball over in the backcourt several times throughout the season. So it seems to me that because they would not want to go 3 guards off the bench, that Chris Dunn will likely be starting over Derrick Jones Jr. But I like Beal, but let's not go away from the identity that we had this season. And first of all, I see this comment, right, from Nick K. He says, I think JVG will get Beal to play the best defense of his career. See, I don't know about that because he was actually a good defender in his first couple years in Washington. I don't know if he'll ever go back to that. I think a coach can help you, but I don't think all of a sudden he's going to go back to that. I think he's still a little bit lazy inherently, and he's been lacking seriousness for about 4 seasons on the basketball court, and he exudes it not just with his effort level and the way he quit in that game 4 against Minnesota, but his answers in losing streaks and stuff like that through adversity. So I don't want Bradley Beal to be like a huge part of this team. I want him to be like a guy that, comes in off the bench and should close games if he's playing well and gives us like 15 points a game on efficient shooting, and some other ball handling. Like, that's what I want him to be. If we're bringing him in to like make a new big 3 kind of deal, he'd be the 4th best player on this team. He's not better than Zoo. But nah, I think we don't throw away the identity of this team. The identity of this team is a defense-first team now. And we just brought in John Collins to help us with that. So for me, and it's not about that bringing Beal is going to make us a not defense-first team, but if he starts, I'm just not confident about starting games with that at all. So that's my opinion on the Beal thing. Now, as far as like the contract stuff, so here's the deal with what this looks like and what our financial situation is now. So the Clippers are now $6.7 million below the first apron. We are at $189.2 million in total salaries. And the first apron is the hard cap of the first apron is $195.9 million. So we're still $6.7 million under that first apron, which we want to stay underneath. The non-taxpayer mid-level, we still have $5.3 million remaining. So everybody's thinking, are we going to get somebody with that? Is Beal, because if he gets bought out by the Suns, they're going to stretch his contract over like 5 years with the stretch provision. So he's going to get paid like $22 million a year for the next couple of years by the Suns. So then he would just be making $5 million a year from us, which would be a complete bargain. I'm just wondering if his camp is willing to accept that. Now, everyone's saying, well, that's the most a contender can pay him. That's higher than the vet minimum. But does he care about being on a contender, or does he just want more money? I guess we'll find out. I think being on a contender, being in LA, I think it's appealing to a player like that, but we'll just have to see. So everyone is saying that we're linked with Bradley Beal. We're just waiting for the buyout. John Collins, by the way, is on an expiring deal making $27 million this year. So he's immediately our 3rd highest paid player. So there's a little bit of an expectation there. But he was acquired with the expanded trade exception of Norm, which was $20.5 million plus $8.5 million. And then we still have that $5.3 million of the non-taxpayer mid-level that I was talking about. And here's the thing. We've all talked about, hey, going into 2027, we want to be primed for a free agent. Well, it's not just 2027. We're in a prime position next offseason. We only have $96 million in guaranteed contracts, but I would assume that James Harden's going to opt into that player option next year. I would assume that. And I would assume the same of Nicholas Batum because he had a 2-year deal. So just saying, we're going to have some cap space next summer too. So I have to say, this is a pretty good job by our front office. They're keeping us competitive, keeping us in the mix, while also planning for the next era, even though we're depleted of assets because of the Kawhi Leonard, Paul George acquisition. So that's kind of where we're at, is we're trying to stay competitive. I think deep down, the franchise knows that a title is not necessarily out of reach, but it's a miracle at this point because we're so old. But getting John Collins makes us a little bit younger. It's a little bit more athletic. If luck breaks our way, maybe we can make a big run. all while positioning ourselves for the next era of Clipper basketball, which will be probably closer to a title, I hope. You know what I'm saying? So Miles Johnson says Harden's second year is only partially guaranteed for 13 million, dime. 13 million? Really? I'm looking at the Clippers payroll right now. I'm gonna pull it up for you guys so you can see it. It says 40 million, bro. Let's see. I'm going to show you guys the screen. Unfortunately for the Apple Podcast and Spotify people, you won't be able to see it, but this is what I'm looking at. You see that? It says James Harden, 40,500,000. Okay, McDonald's. Really? That's ridiculous. Okay, 40,500,000 and a player option for that second year. Because, bro, it was an $80 million contract. So that's our payroll right now. You see Bogdanovich? He has that 16 million. That is a team option. So see, his contract expires next year. I don't know if we're going to be renewing that. So that's the situation. Oh, the Clippers have a team option on Nicholas Batum? I thought it was a player option. Okay, so he might retire after this year. Who knows? So there you go, right then and there. So that's the situation. We are in a pretty good spot to, get someone maybe down the line, but also stay competitive. So it's a big win for the Clippers. I think it's a good win today. Good move. And I obviously wish Norman Powell the best, man. So much content on this channel with Norman Powell in it in terms of his games and his, me talking about his games, me being at his games, me talking about, when we got him, and yeah, just some great vlogs with Norman Powell doing the players sit down or whatever. So great stuff. But anyway, another announcement. Oh, Miles, right? It's a $13.3 million guaranteed for next year, and it's a player option. But what does that mean, though? So James Harden can't opt in for 40 million? I'm confused. What does that mean? But anyway, I'm going to be at Summer League, ladies and gentlemen. For the first time ever, I'm going to be credentialed. Your boy. So think about the access we're going to be getting at this event. I'm going to be trying to talk to everybody, scouts, coaches, players. We're going to be in the media section, son. You got to love it. Yo, send me what's our Summer League roster looking like? Because hopefully I can talk to some of the players, and this will be some of the best vlogs that we've probably ever had. I say that all the time. I still think nothing beats my World Cup vlogs. I think those are the best. They're the most underrated videos on my channel because it's a freaking World Cup, and most of them have less than 1,000 views. Nothing gets bigger than the World Cup. The Birmingham vlogs were amazing in terms of like crowd atmosphere. Like, also I went to a North London derby. Like I went to an Arsenal Tottenham game. That was sick. And then obviously playoff vlogs are next. But yeah, man. Media credentials. So wait, can somebody explain to me though what the 13 million you're talking about is for Harden? I thought he was 80 million. But anyway, all right, that's it for the audio version of this podcast. Remember, if you are listening on audio, I'm releasing post-game recaps of every playoff game still. If you want the video version of those, become a member of our channel. And yeah, I'll be releasing series breakdowns for everybody, for like just everyone later down the line, because since 2020, 2021, every series has to be covered on Dime Dropper. That's just the rules. But anyway, all right. Peace out and have a great day. John Collins is a Clipper.